Hello guys, gals, non-binary pals, and waterfowls. It's me, Big Mike, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Coffee with Big Mike, the series where I sit down for a chat with some rather interesting and amazing people over a nice cup of coffee. Joining me today is Baconfish, the developer of Witchfall, The Secrets of Emotica, one of the phenomenal games that was at Sage 24. Welcome, Bacon, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello, how you doing? Good to be here. Been looking forward to this for a while, so I'm glad we're finally here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. It really, really is. Ever since I first played Witchfall at Sage 24, I have got to get the dev on here. I have got to talk to the dev. This is absolutely phenomenal. But we'll get to that in a bit. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here. So, how's it going today?
Oh, yeah, pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, overslept, but it is what it is. You know, the dev life and all that. Like I said, looking forward to this.
Honestly, I just met you I would say about a week or two ago, perhaps at this point. And, I met you at Sage. Okay. And for myself and my listeners, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, where to start? So, I'm not what you'd call a professional game developer or anything like that. I've only been in the industry for about 3 years or something like that. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll be putting a spot all over it. I like games and stuff. I like developing games. I like people. I like meeting people. Other devs and stuff like that. Other than that, there's not really that much about me that... Yeah, so, I've not been a developer for too long. This is literally one of my first games that I'm making. So that is such a hard question. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
tell me a bit about yourself. We'll move on. We'll move on because I don't know what to say about that one.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that question when we talked earlier. I forgot. I was reviewing my questions today because I always like to review my questions beforehand. I was like, I completely forgot about this one. I forget because I'm just getting back into doing these at the moment. So I started again last month, and that was my first one since 2023. So I'm back. Just getting back into the saddle again, as we say. Now, one of the things I like to do on Coffee with Big Mike when it comes to my game dev guests is I like to try to get to know them as gamers first. So,
right
before we talk about developing and such, I want to get to know you as the gamer, or as a gamer, I should say. And what was the first game you ever played?
That would be the first Sonic game, in fact. I remember playing it at my grandma's. She helped me play it. I'll never forget going past that first checkpoint and stuff in the first game. I was just like, whoa, what is this? I never played a video game before then, and must have been about 3 years old, something. Yeah, it was a very surreal experience. Absolutely fell in love, and I've been a Sonic fan ever since.
It's interesting you mention that, because actually I started gaming myself around 3 years old. I started with the original Super Mario Bros. My parents had an NES, and they had one of those cartridges. I'm not sure if you guys had them in the UK or not, but with the Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt combo, and so
we had stuff like that. Yeah.
So I grew up playing that, but by the time I turned 4 or 5, I fell in love with Sonic, and so I asked for a Sega Genesis or a Mega Drive for Christmas, and so I started with Sonic 2 though. I started with Sonic 2, which it still kind of holds a special place in my heart, but Sonic 3 is definitely my favorite.
I would say Sonic 2 is an excellent start in the series, honestly, because you've got... It's one of the... For me, personally, I find Sonic 2 to be one of the better of the 3 on the Genesis. It's definitely my favourite anyway. But fun fact, I didn't actually... Sonic 1 was my first game, but I actually started out with the Master System. The 8-bit Sonic games were what I played frequently as a kid, until I finally got we call it a Mega Drive over here. Genesis Mega Drive. Yeah, I didn't get onto that until a little bit later in life, but I'm glad I did, because Sonic's one of the most influential games I played.
I will say it was kind of weird going back to Sonic 1, I would say, as a child, going back to Sonic 1, being used to Sonic 2, Sonic 3, with the whole spin dash, and going back to Sonic 1 and not being able to do that. The Master System wasn't really so popular, but I did play a lot of those same Sonic games on the Game Gear, and I will say they were a step up in difficulty compared to their Genesis counterparts or their Mega Drive counterparts. At least that's how it felt to 5 or 6-year-old Mikey.
Yeah, it's all about that jungle act 2.
I think I mentioned this in the Discord server before. Honestly, somebody at Sage this year, they did, I don't know if you can call it a remaster or remake, but they took Sonic 2 for the Master System or Game Gear, and they rebuilt it as a fan game on the Sonic 2 Mega Drive engine, it looked like. And
yeah, I saw.
I'll be honest with you, fam, that was the first time in my life I've ever been able to get past the first zone in that game. Like, I had it as a child, as a young kid, maybe about 6 or 7 on my Game Gear, and yeah, because when in the boss fight you don't have any rings in the original, if I remember correctly, and so, and also I had it even as a teenager, it still gave me a good beating, man, because I had it. It was in Sonic Gems collection, and I got it from my GameCube, and still, man, I still couldn't get past it. So this was really my first time. But all of the Genesis game or the Mega Drive games, no problem beating the other Game Gear games, no problem at all. So, Sonic Triple Trouble, Sonic Chaos, no issue with at all finishing. But that one Sonic game, man, that one, whew.
Well, it's strange, really, because the Game Gear version in particular was the harder version. I used to have it for the Master System. Had no trouble with it because it's more you can see on screen. Whereas the Game Gear, it's very, very small space, and the sprites are very big. So I can imagine you'd have trouble with it. I would try the Master System version, maybe. See if you like that one better.
Yeah, I might give that one a shot, actually. I might go back and give that one a shot. Honestly, now I play mostly ROMs now, to be honest with you. I used to... I used to have a pretty decent collection of systems when I lived in the U.S., but, going abroad, I had to leave a lot of things behind, especially given the fact that, I had to try to pack a whole life into my suitcase and trying to, man, that was a bit challenging. There were 2 different styles of TVs in the world, PAL and NTSC, and,
Yep.
I couldn't kind of make that gamble of taking up precious space with a system that may not work where I'm going. So I was like, okay. And then when I get here, I find out they actually use both styles here. So I could have brought it with me. But yep, that's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah, that's one of the struggles we don't really get anymore in life is region locks and stuff like that. It was a struggle back then because we used the PAL versions of games over here, and they were significantly less quality. They ran at less frames per second, stuff like that. We always got the slower versions of games. I remember Sonic 1 being very slow. In fact, the music was slower, the gameplay was slower. I can't remember. I think it was 15 FPS or something like that we played it at.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because I just saw a video on that not too long ago. Why PAL Sonic was slower, and I never realized that was even a thing, and it's kind of interesting how that works, how where you're at in the world not only may impact the actual content of the game, but also how its performance is, and that was quite a shocker for me.
Yeah, I mean, because I played Mega Collection Plus PS2. I picked that up at some point. I thought, ooh, classic Sonic, you can't beat that. And played Sonic 1 on that, and noticed the music was a lot faster. And I thought, what the hell's going on here? I didn't know how it sounded before, And that's when I figured it out. It's like, okay, we got the short end of the stick again with the games. I don't know, honestly, me personally, and I know it's an unpopular opinion, I always preferred it slowed down, only because I grew up with it. But I think it's grown on me over time. I think I play it more or less at the speed it's supposed to, and not really problems.
It's not exactly apples to apples here, but, I grew up playing Super Mario Bros. And when I was in university, I found out there was this old Mario game, this old kind of quasi-remake, quasi-port, quasi-sequel. It's not really any one of those things, but it's a little bit of all of those things for an obscure Hudson computer game system. And it's called Super Mario Bros. Special. And it has a lot of different things from various, not just Mario platformers, but also the Mario arcade game and the Donkey Kong arcade game, like most notably the barrels and such. So I really wanted to give it a shot, and when I played it, it was a huge adjustment for me because the frame rate in that game, I'm not sure what the frame rate is, but it's much slower than your standard, Super Mario Bros. Game. In fact, it's kind of odd when you get to the end of one screen, like the screen actually has to shift over to the other screen, and it's visibly noticeable. And yeah, it really messes with the physics and also your reaction time as well. If you're used to that one way of playing. So it's an interesting game to check out if you're interested in gaming history and such.
I would say, back when we were kids and stuff, when we played that stuff, I mean, we didn't really know any better, I suppose. If you were to go, because we're spoiled with FPS and stuff like that these days, if we were to go back, we'd really notice a difference, I think. Like, we'd be like, how the hell did we even play this? Like...
Absolutely, and also with the internet now, man, like we're connected to so much information. Like we know things now about gaming and the history of gaming that we never, well, at least when I was a kid, we never would have known about. And there was a certain charm to that. There was a certain amount of charm, especially. I'm not sure. Are you a Pokemon fan?
Oh yes.
When I remember that time between Gen 1 and Gen 2, that was a very magical time in the Pokemon fandom. So. At least in the English-speaking West, there was all this information coming out on Japanese sites, and people would translate it sometimes rather poorly, and so you would get like this hodgepodge of, poor translation, outright lies, and facts, and so it was a rather interesting time to be in the fandom, but something like that would never happen again. It can never be replicated because the internet is much better now. More people have access to it. Translation tools are much better. Communication with other people is much better, and so there is like a certain amount of loss to that too. There's a bit of the magic is gone, I think, but also having information at your fingertips is it feels pretty damn good. I would say. So
I mean, I see that's fine. I see that stuff as having this information literally just right before us. It is a double-edged sword in ways because in many ways it's helpful when you get stuck, and it's helpful for say in Pokemon, for example, you want to know where a particular Pokemon is and its stats and things like that. It's fair enough, there you go. That's your info. You can use Cerebi or Bulbapedia, stuff like that. But at the same time, you're right. I feel social media ruins a lot of people's perception on games a little. I remember back in the day, all we had was PlayStation demos to go off. And if we liked a game we played on there, that's what we asked for Christmas or our birthday and things like that. But now, you look online, see what games are good, stuff like that. I mean, I don't normally go off reviews, but yeah, I do feel like bad games are caught very quickly. You never get to experience bad games that much anymore on your own. And you never get to make your own mind up these days, I suppose. It's made for you, online anyway. So, I don't know. It's sort of that magic that I do miss. Trying out a game, deciding whether you liked it or not. I just wish it was a thing that would come back.
Yeah, I do remember. Well, I didn't really have any experience with the demo disc for the PlayStation and such, because I wanted a PlayStation because I was a huge anime fan, and there are many games for the PlayStation that had like this anime aesthetic to it. And anime in kind of the mid '90s was kind of rare in the United States. But many people, my parents included, had what I like to call CD phobia, and so there was this fear that if a CD gets one little scratch on it, it's no longer any good. So unfortunately, I never had a CD system or CD console until the GameCube came around. I never had a chance to try that, but I did kind of have like an experience of going to my local video rental store almost every other weekend to check out a game or two. And sometimes I would find some really gold games. Played a lot of some hella cool platformers, mascot platformers from the early to mid '90s on the Super Nintendo, the Mega Drive, the NES and such. But sometimes some real just loads of shit. That's like the best way I can put it. Like just instant cash grabs. So yeah, it was just kind of this is kind of how it was, and if I liked the game enough, after trying it, I'd go out and I would work, save my money up, go buy it, and if I didn't like it, nah, not for me. But
I feel like I was gonna say, it's strange. I'm one of those rare cases where I wasn't a Nintendo person. I never really got into it like a lot of people did. And I think about it. I think, what would I be like if I was a Nintendo fan as a kid? And where would I be now with this game development stuff? Because I grew up on PlayStation and stuff like that. I mean, I wouldn't change it for the world. I mean, I have got into Nintendo recently. I play Mario a lot now and stuff, But back in the day, Mario was only ever a word I ever heard in school, Zelda and stuff like that. I never really got into them, and it's really strange. A lot of people raise their eyebrows when I mention this, But it is interesting. It's interesting that people can have different upbringings and stuff like that with games. I guess I'm one of them.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, but I just think your cultural context, that's entirely a possibility. Like growing up in the '90s in the United States, me not having any experience with the Sega Master System is perfectly that's to be expected. I mean some people some people there did play the Master System, but for the most part, most people didn't. Whereas, say in the UK, Nintendo didn't have its dominance like it had in the United States. So you could grow up as a gamer and even be around in that same era and not really pick up an NES. You could play the Master System, for example. And I'm not sure if anything else was around, far as gaming wise in the in the UK, because I've learned that the video game crash in the 80s only really affected the United States, and not really so much other regions. So I'm not sure if you guys had any other major consoles and stuff over there at the time. But the takeaway is, given your cultural context, it's perfectly reasonable, that you've never played Mario.
But it's strange, like I said, because having said that, there was a lot of Nintendo over here at the time. I did know about it. I guess in many ways, back then we weren't too well off. So I think one console per 5 years was maybe what we got. For some reason, we always chose Sega or PlayStation, one of the two. We never actually went for Nintendo.
I was kind of late.
It's not a.
Oh, wow. Oh, please continue.
No, you go. No, you go.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was kind of late with consoles myself. Like, I was pretty on time when it came to the Mega Drive and the SNES, but I was really late getting the N64. Like, I think I got my N64 in 1998, 1999, and I didn't get my GameCube until maybe 2003, maybe 2003, 2004.
Mm-hmm.
And I did get my Wii pretty close to the day it launched. I would have got it on launch day, but I couldn't find one nowhere. Like, trying to find a Wii in the United States when it came out was nearly impossible.
Yep, I can imagine.
And that was pretty much my last console I bought. That was pretty much the last one I bought. Though this does kind of bring me to the question I wanted to add. The next question I wanted to ask you. Because of your gaming experience, all the consoles you played, the eras you played games through, what do you think is the most difficult game you've ever played?
Ooh, that's a difficult question. So as I said earlier, I grew up mostly on the PlayStation 1 era, so there wasn't many super difficult games I can remember for that system. One does stick out, to be honest. Rayman was a very, very hard game. Not because I don't think it was intentionally meant to be hard. It just is because of testing, maybe, and quality assurance with that game. It was just a lot of it felt very unfair. But recently, I have picked up the Mega Man series, and I've got to say I'm a huge fan. I've literally got so much merch of Mega Man right now. Been a fan for years, well, recently, but years. And I find them to be excruciating at times, those games. So they would fall into that category of hardest game ever played. Although I know people are very good at it, me myself, I find them very, very hard to play.
I appreciate Mega Man. I respect it. I even play the games, but holy hell, some of those games, especially the first ones, are some of the most difficult I've played. In fact, I don't think I've ever cleared like a single stage. Like I don't think I've ever cleared like beat the robot that controlled that stage and got their power.
Mm-hmm.
So very I respect Mega Man for its legacy, what it's done and stuff. But holy hell, definitely some difficult games. For me, I would say for the NES had a port, well not a port, but it had a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game, and that is probably the most difficult game I've ever played in my life. And your button your button pressing has to be so precise, and you have very little time, and it's fucking insane. It's absolutely insane.
I have heard of the I was going to say so I've heard of the infamous term NES difficulty or NES difficulty, where those games are a different category of difficulty on their own. I've heard of how hard they are, and I think that's a lot where Mega Man stems from, is that kind of gameplay.
There was a game at this year's Sage that really perfectly captured that. I want to say it was Men of Conviction, and the aesthetic, it had the NES aesthetics, what you would see from Mega Man or maybe Bionic Commando, but it captured the aesthetics and the music and the difficulty perfectly. Yeah, very, very difficult game, but I gotta say, for an NES style game, the opening was one of the most cinematic I have ever seen in my life, fam. It's if you like games with good cinematography, good stories, I would highly recommend checking it out.
I think I will.
And I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention Bowser Gets Clever. Have you had a chance to play that one?
Yes. It's one of those games, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yep. My vocabulary got very creative while I was playing that game. Very creative. So yeah, but fun game. I will say it was it was a fun game, and I did get very creative with my vocabulary. But a lot of times the deaths actually did make me laugh. Like that first one where the house falls on you. Like I couldn't even be mad at that. Couldn't even be mad.
I remember saying to the developer, "When's the sequel? Bowser is a genius."
I remember playing and I was like, Bowser Gets Clever. I was like, well, what about Bowser Gets Ruthless? Like, man, because damn, that's what it's like. He's pulling no more stops now. He's coming out both guns blazing, and honestly, I still haven't even got past the first level on that one either, fam. Really.
No, that's understandable.
Well, I tell the people who watch me, all the time, I make no claims at being a good gamer. I'm just a dude who loves games. Or what would be some of your favorite games?
This is going to sound rather cliche, coming from a PlayStation enjoyer. I will have to go with game. I don't really have a favorite game, so to speak, but I have a bunch. We've got to go with the Crash Bandicoot series and the Spyro series. Some of the best games I've ever played in my life. The colors, the characters, collecting gems and stuff like that. I mean, those games really have sort of molded me into who I am now and the kind of games I love now. There's other games, Abe's Odyssey, Tomb Raider, things like that. I can't really pick one out that stands out because they're all so good. The only game I find myself revisiting more than most is actually Crash Team Racing. That is like a phenomenal game to me. From developers who didn't even... It was their first attempt at doing a kart race, and I think they nailed it. It was so good. For the sake of this question, I would say that one was my most played. So therefore, that one must be my favorite.
I've never played Crash Team Racing, but it's one of those games that I've been meaning to try for a while because I'm not a fan of conventional racers, but I love a kart racer. Mario Kart, Diddy Kong Racing, South Park Rally, all some of my favorite games. Crash Team Racing is one of those games I've been really, really wanting to try.
I would recommend it.
And I know you mentioned that, it's really hard for you to pick a favorite, but instead of picking a favorite, do you think you could pick one that was the most influential on you?
In regards to game development, I would say it's a mishmash of different aspects of different games that I've taken and molded into my own thing. For example, the Spyro games, they have a certain amount of gems per level that you need to collect. They're all hidden in some devious places and things like that. It's one of the things I took from that game. I took the rich and beautiful world of Rayman and used that as influence also. But the biggest inspiration I've ever got in my life was from a little game known as Maple Story that I used to play in my college days. Because it was one of those games I loved, but wished was a bit more simple to get into. There's a lot to learn about that game, but I wish for a bit more of a simple experience with that. And I guess that's what led to me thinking, maybe I can make a game like this. Not the same, but like it. But use different aspects of different games I've played over the years. Mesh it into this one little world that I want to make.
I remember Maple Story. I never had a chance to play it. A friend of mine gave me a copy of it on CD once. Around 2006, I never was able to get it set up for some reason or another. So I came very close to playing it, but never actually played it, unfortunately. But I've always heard really good things about it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when it comes to careers, many people find themselves in careers, for very different reasons. They find, many different paths. Some people, they kind of stumble into a career or a career path they want to follow. Some people are influenced by their family, like, for example, people who are doctors or lawyers, or they come from families of doctors and lawyers. They oftentimes will become doctors or lawyers themselves. And other people, they have like an experience, where they say, this is what I want to do with my life. So I want to ask, while you were gaming, have you ever had like an aha moment? Like a moment in gaming where you were like, okay, this is what I want to do with my life?
I would say that feeling came over me very early in life. I would say as early as 5 years old. I knew I wanted to make games because the funny thing I used to draw out like levels on paper. Like I used to draw out like these like maps and things like that you could go across. And I used to cut out a character and move them along the paper as I was making the game. I think it was at that point I knew that I actually want to do this because I'm literally doing it right now. To me, that was developing games and planning them. The only thing is that, as I went into college and discovered that this stuff is possible, you got Game Maker and stuff like that, but I looked at the development process and thought, it's not for me. I can't code, I can't do that stuff. But it was something I'd always wanted to do. Definitely.
And it's really interesting, that you answer that because the very next question I wanted to ask you was, how did you get into game development?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a long story. So Witchfall wasn't always intended to be a game. It actually started out as a comic series. You could even Google it. You might find the old comic online somewhere. It was never finished because I fell out of love with making comics because of how excruciating it is to actually do. Very tedious process making comics. So mad props to people who actually do make comics because it's very hard work. It wasn't until one year I went to Play Expo in the UK I went to, and I met a good friend of mine now. We'll call him Mad Pangolin. And, we met over a game of Crash Team Racing of all things, and he told me, I showed him Witchfall. He had a look at it. He says, why don't you just turn it into a game? What's the problem? I don't know if I could, commit myself to like coding and learning new things. And he gave me a bit of an ass kicking and just said, I think you can do it. I'll show you how. And for years, he gave me lessons and he showed me the fundamentals of game development. Really, really cool guy, He said he's not a good teacher, but I think he is personally, because I wouldn't be here now without him, you know. And I think it'd be injustice if I don't mention the guy, because I know he'll be watching this at some point. So shout outs. But yeah, no, he really took me under his wing, showed me the process. Wasn't an easy process, but eventually I started to get a knack for it, a bit of a passion for coding, and I kind of took off and did my own thing. And what you see today at Witchfall is everything I learned from him.
Now, speaking of Witchfall, what was the inspiration for it?
Well, you know, inspiration comes from a lot of places, but one of the earliest things I can recollect is, you know, old Don Bluth movies. Don Bluth, you ever heard of that? That guy, his movies.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I grew up watching a lot of his movies. I think Five-O Goes West, maybe Balto.
Yeah, you know, those kinds of movies. You know, and I always loved. I always loved the aspect of, you know, it's a small character, small, cute little character in a dire situation, in a situation much bigger than them. They have to overcome the odds and get through it. Like, that was one of the bigger inspirations, is watching those films and falling in love with these characters. But again, it's a mishmash of characters that I've come to love through my life, meshed into one little character that I've made. A little, you know, Comey, obviously, little witch girl. And as bright and as beautiful as the world of Witchfall looks, it's very dangerous at the same time. It's got very dark undertones in the story, which I won't talk too much about today. But a lot of things do happen in this game. And it all stems from those movies I used to watch, and it stems from the games I used to play. But it's everything I love and everything I've experienced all gone into this one game. So I would easily say, watch movies, play games, take inspiration, and this is what you get. You know, you find a passion for it.
You know, I am a bit of a fan of that formula. I am a bit of a fan of that formula. You know, starting off with this warm, bright, colorful world, and then, you know, you get hooked on it, you get used to it. You know, you fall in love with it, you form like an emotional attachment with it, and then you get hit with something heavy, something dark. And well, you know, I kind of dabble in development myself. I work with visual novels, and many of the great visual novels follow that formula. Clannad, Air, Canon, probably Doki Doki Literature Club we can include in that as well. So, you know, it's very effective. It's a very, very effective. Now, I think I already know the answer to this, but I want to ask it anyway. And if you feel like it's too spoilery of a question, we can skip it. But who do you think is your favorite character?
In Witchfall?
That's correct.
It's personal bias, because a lot of people at the moment I've only played a demo and only seen the demo, so they won't really get an emotional connection to this. But my favorite character is actually her name is Maya, and she's a raccoon in the game. She wears the red dress. I don't know, you know, you can see images of her around the internet. If you search Witchfall, you'll see her. She's part of the main five. Little raccoon with a red dress. She's, I would argue, the most relatable character in the game. Obviously, Comey is, I would say, the Mickey Mouse of the game. You know, she's the face of Witchfall. But I do feel Maya has the more down to earth sort of like role in the game. I don't want to mention too much about what she goes through. All I'll know is that a lot of people will resonate with her.
I'm probably different from a lot of people who play Witchfall, or at least who played the demo, I should say. You know, many people I've seen, they love Kyome. Is that how you pronounce it? Kyome?
It's Comey.
Comey. Yeah, so I see a lot of people love Comey. I'm a huge fan of Fowler, and there's probably a lot of bias there. I will say, probably a lot of bias. Well, depending on who you talk to, I kind of present myself as a duck or goose on Twitter. So, and I'm in a group of fowl enthusiasts. Definitely not a cult by any means, but yeah, I'm in a bird cult on Twitter. So definitely we love we love bird related characters. So it's not hard to win me over if you have a bird character, but more than that, I love the back and forth between her and Comey at the start of the game. That was some really, really good dialogue, and also some damn good voice acting too, I have to say.
I mean, I can shout those two out right now. We have Mia, who voices Comey. Really, really interesting girl. Slightly unhinged, but I do love her. She's amazing. The other, Kelly Greenshield, who has done quite a bit of anime, I believe. She's not only the voice actress for Fowler, but she also started the voice acting in general. She came along and said, this game must have voice acting. And she was very insistent on that. She came along out of nowhere and just said, let's do this. And I took a chance with her. She's been an absolute asset to this game, with her contacts and things like that, and her knowledge of voice acting too. Very professional at what she does. And I hope she's watching this. And hello, Kelly. Again, it's been a while. I hope we get to talk soon. But yeah, I would say she's a very big driving force of the voice acting. So a lot of the talent you hear comes from her direction, I guess. I mean, I do a little bit of directing myself with it, but Kelly's really the one who gives it flavor.
I know when it comes to animation, a voice is going to make or break a character. So trying to find that perfect voice is a critical part. What was it like trying to find the right voice actor for your game?
So the process of finding Kelly had an A list of people she knew who would have been interested, and we loved them all, so we cast them immediately because they all did an amazing job. Other than that, we used to put out casting calls on Twitter to see if anyone was interested in doing it. So we did a process of auditions for the characters, and I will say, me personally, found it very, very, very difficult because I loved every single one of them. And every person that we'd listen to, I'd be like, yep, that's her. Yes, that's him. I want him, and Kelly would have to bring me back and say, look, you need to be a bit more professional about it. You can't be a yes man with these things. You have to find one person and one person only who sticks out. So again, Kelly was really the one who sort of sparked this professionalism inside me and made me select the right person. I wouldn't say, not talent-wise, but who was right for the character. Like, say, for example, Maya. We initially wanted to go for someone shy, someone a bit more quiet, but we ended up picking the opposite because Maya's voice actor came across with something different and she stood out, So we tend to go for people who stood out more than anything.
Honestly, being a yes man was something I had to overcome when I worked on my first film. I had to choose actors and actresses to be in certain roles and stuff. And I, at first I liked everybody I saw, much like you did when it came to the voices. But I got to thinking, okay, this person is good. They're skilled, they're talented, but are they perfect as this character? Like for example, I think Jim Carrey, he's a phenomenal, comedy actor, right? If I'm playing, if I have a comedy movie with a slapstick main character, I would love to have him as that main character. But let's say, for example, if I'm making, let's say, have you ever seen Gladiator?
I've not seen that one.
If I'm making if I'm making, let's say, really, really tragic movie, or a really, really, action oriented movie, as good as Jim Carrey is as an actor, he wouldn't be right in that role. Or he likely wouldn't be right in that role. And so, trying to figure out, who is talented and who is not only talented but also good for this particular character, this particular role, was one of the biggest challenges I had to work on in my first film. So I can definitely understand where you were coming from. Now, what I did personally end up doing is I didn't have a lot of people to audition, so pretty much anybody who did audition did get a role for me with me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm just that kind of guy. Old habits are hard to break, I can say.
No, I get that.
What?
I get that. Yeah, because I wanted to say because I started this game out not really expecting it to be as big as it's getting. I wanted to just make a silly little game with my characters that I already pre-established. And the very idea of having voice acting at all, I mean, I was happy to take anybody on, because it was already a dream come true for me to hear my characters voiced and stuff. I think that's a lot goes into why I was a bit of a yes man with it. I don't care who does it, I just want someone to do it because that's just amazing, but in hindsight, it's good that we went with the people we did, because they've absolutely been amazing. There are so many characters in this game and so many different voice talents. There's just some characters in particular I'm looking forward to people to seeing when the full game releases. I don't want to spoil anything, but again, there's just a few characters that I'm looking forward to seeing reactions to. I can say one character, actually. I can say Frenchie, which already has a lot of fans. Her voice actress is amazing, when she comes into the game. But yeah, there's a lot to look forward to.
Now, your game has a publisher, right? And so can I ask, what was it like trying to get a publisher to pick up your indie game? What was that experience like?
Okay, so the publisher situation is an odd one to me. Again, I set out to do something small and non-ambitious, just to give it a go, see if I could do it. And I can only speak facts here, and it was, I didn't actually go looking for a publisher. They came to me on Twitter. Top Hat Studios sent me a message, and I thought, okay, this has got some sort of scam. This isn't real. Asking me for a deal and stuff. And, we had a few back and forths, me and Top Hat. And they were really, really friendly. And I checked their background and stuff, and they got a really good track record for making games. They made games like Frogun, things like that. Can't remember off the top of my head the others, but there were some really good games under the belt, And from listening to interviews from them, they seemed like the ideal publisher for me. So when they asked to do a deal, obviously I asked for the contract to have a look, see what it was. And I've got to say, very, very fair, very, real people. They're not like any other publisher, very, very fair. And you know what they say, you don't sign your life away and things like that. But the thing is, like, I really liked what these guys brought to the table. They saw potential in the game that I didn't see myself, and I took a chance with them, and I just, signed, and everything seems good so far. They've been absolutely, they've been real. They've been so good to me. I owe them a lot, and they've got me this far. But again, it is very surreal because, as I said, none of this was planned. I'm going to be honest. I asked a lot of people, and a lot of people say don't go for it. It's something you shouldn't do. But at the same time, am I going to get this chance again? Is another publisher going to come to me with a deal like that? Because you hear horror stories about publishers. So I went for it, and I don't regret it.
I had no idea they did, Frogun. Frogun was an amazing game. I played, I want to say originally at Sage 21 and also at 22, but amazing title. I had no idea they were behind that, but I did recognize, I saw that they were behind several games at this year's Sage. And I'm not sure if you know any of the other games they did at Sage, but yeah, I remember seeing it like, oh,
I believe,
wow.
I believe Dungeon Gals was one. That's another dev that I've made friends with recently. Yeah, no, I think Dungeon Gals is the only one I saw under Top Hat's publishing. But yeah.
Is Witchfall your first game?
So this is a tricky one because if we were defining first game by one I developed, then no. The first game I ever worked on was for a game jam with Mad Pangolin, the same guy I spoke about earlier, we made a game jam called Jousty, which is a very small, very arcade-like game. I did all the artwork for that project while he did the programming, and we did it all in 3 days. So it was a proper, crunch, getting it done. But it's a cute little game. It's one I hold dear to my heart. So again, it depends on your definition of first game. Development-wise, yes, Witchfall is my first.
Now, I asked you this before in private when we talked, and I was really surprised. I was really surprised when you told me about this, because if you look at the art of Witchfall, you would think that you were a senior game dev. In fact, and I don't recall who said this, so please forgive me, but somebody in the Sage Discord server, said during Sage Week about your game, he said, he or she or they said, the thing that amazes me is the scale and quality of the sprite work. This looks like an entire studio was drawing it, and yet it wasn't an entire studio, it was just you. So I have to ask, how long did the art itself take you to complete?
Fun fact: the artwork is still going on. I can't see an end to it. Honestly, it has been so much. But again, it comes from the passion I have, the characters, and everything that I spoke about earlier. Coming into this passion inside me to make these characters look the way they do. I couldn't settle for anything lower than what I've done, because I want to make sure the characters are very distinguishable. I want you to know who you're playing as and what they're like. I wanted to capture the essence of that character in this one sprite. You look at Comey, she's bouncy, big smile on her face, ready for anything, And the same comes with everything in the game, even the flowers are dancing, everything's moving. It's just something I wanted because, a lot of people did say during Sage, the game is very much alive and stuff like that, and I couldn't wish for anything more. I want the game to feel alive. I want it to feel like a living, breathing world, and I think I'm glad my artwork has captured that, and people have noticed it, because it's definitely what I wanted. So the artwork takes a long time. I'm not going to lie to you. It takes a long time, and sometimes it can be soul destroying. But at the same time, look what comes out of it. It all becomes worth it in the end, I think.
Oh, I definitely agree. The investment you put in, the time investment, is definitely well worth it, and you can definitely see it, fam. And I do have to admit, this is not only one of the most alive-looking games I've ever seen at a Sage. This is one of the most alive-looking games I have ever seen in my life, fam. I have never seen a game come to life quite like this. Like, not only is your characters moving, if you played, platformers back in the day, sometimes you get some parallax scrolling as well. So, you get those effects too. But I've never seen a 2D platformer come to life quite like this. And, I can just only imagine what it would have been like if you had released this game like in the 90s. Well, people would have hailed you as like the next Miyamoto. It's like it's like a work of art. It's like, it really is like a work of art. Like, whoa, it's fantastically beautiful. It really, really is.
I will say this. You mentioned releasing it back in the day. Development-wise, I have to admit, I do break a lot of rules with it to get that standard that I want. I do break a lot of, because people say to you should try making sprite work with limited palettes and things like that. It's just something I don't do. A lot of people have come along, told me how I should do it. I've not listened. I should sometimes, because these are professionals that come and talk to me. But, despite making this game for people, I also want it for myself to be the way it is. I like it the way it is, And, you could call that selfish, but at the same time, it's a vision that I've had since the start of this game. And, I'm just glad people are enjoying it. I must be doing something right. So I think I'm going to continue the way I'm going, honestly. But I will consider things that people mention, because I've had a few critiques regarding the artwork over the last few weeks, and it's rightly so. There are some things people can't see right and things like that, and these are things that we'll probably tackle. But again, it's because I don't follow rules. I don't really. Basically winging it, if you will, and somehow it just works.
Well, I think sometimes, you should break the rules in regards to art. Art shouldn't be something that's just put in a box that will confined to something. But, in order for an artist to be free, to express or to, show the world their vision, sometimes they have to break the rules. And I think that's, that's not only necessary, but also damn near needed to get innovation out. So I of course I say this as a filmmaker myself, as something of a game dev, but not really like a visual art type of guy. I don't draw, I don't make sprites or anything like that. So, but I do have a soft spot for Rebels, though. As somebody who I guess LARPs as a goose online, I do have a soft spot for Rebel. So definitely, I think it looks like it paid off for you. Breaking the rules, looked like it. It really, really paid off here. So I would say fantastic work. Now, speaking of the astronomical amounts of time, game development is a very challenging process. It's a heavy endeavor to take. So what do you think is the most challenging, or what do you think was the most challenging aspect of developing Witchfall?
For the initial 3 years developing a learning code, I was working more or less, well, after Mad Pangolin, after I left his care, I've been developing alone a lot of the time. And one of the hardest things I had to do is accept it. I needed help with the project. Because, like I said, when you got a vision, you have a set thing you want to do. At one point, any game developer would tell you, you have a breakdown, you have burnout, things like that. Again, it was admitting I needed help was one of the hardest things I had to do. And I reached out to a very good friend of mine, Harrison, and he came along with the, if you play the demo, you've seen the glyphs, him and his wife came up with the idea. And I said to him, do you want to jump on and help me with this game? And he said, yeah, sure. And Harrison has been designing the scenarios, basically what happens in each level, the storyline of each level, because every level in the game has a story, has characters that you meet. And he came up with most of that. And we've been working together since. Again, I don't feel like it's a problem many people have, but asking for that help and admitting you need help was one of the hardest things I had to do developing Witchfall. There's a lot of hard things, like, don't get me wrong, developing, doing the artwork and stuff, but that for me was the hardest, was having someone else jump on to assist.
Well, I completely understand. I've never really had that issue in regards to my creative side, but in my personal life, I've definitely been in situations like that. When I was in university, I had broken my right leg in 4 places, and I had to learn how to walk again. And for about 1.5 to 2.5 months, I was, I had to ask for help for everybody, from everybody around me, from, simple things like everyday things like going to the bathroom or, eating,
Yeah.
It was a very humbling experience, but I think, it's very necessary, very, very necessary to be able to get comfortable with that, because, we all need help, especially in regards to art, whether that help is actually, coming and, helping you do something, or maybe just giving you advice, because, there are many people who have, been down the same roads that we're currently going down, in our current creative paths. And so it's always good to ask for help, always good to ask for advice when in doubt or when needed. But I can definitely understand where you're coming from. And now, developing games takes a great deal of time. It's a long, tiring journey. Now, over the course of developing Witchfall, Did you learn anything about yourself?
100%. Yes. I find the problem with game development, and I speak for a lot of game developers, is the fact we overwork, and sometimes we don't realize we're doing it. We tend not to take care of ourselves very well mentally and physically. One thing I learned doing this is that you lose track of time very easily, and you know your health will start to decline. So I had to learn how to discipline myself and force myself to take breaks and rest. Very, very, very important that you do that, and eat, go out, walk, stuff like that. But again, it's one of those things that I neglected to do for so long because I thought I have to get this game finished. I have to do it. It's got to be done. But at the same time, devs need to remember that it's a life you're living at the same time. And again, it's a discipline thing. You have to tell yourself you can't do this 24/7. So that was a huge hurdle to come over. I had to do it because I got a family I've got to take care of and stuff as well. But yeah, no, like I said, if I got any advice for any like aspiring game dev out there, make sure you take breaks and make sure you come away from it. Because if you don't do that, you'll get burnt out and you'll get nothing done. Very strange, really. The less you do, the more you do. I don't know. That's the way I put it. The less you do in a day, the more you will get done. If you try to force it out, you'll get nothing done.
That makes perfect sense. As someone who's dealt with burnout numerous times over the course of my life, I completely understand where you're coming from with that. And in the end, the less you do per day, the less you kind of push yourself, the more you'll get done in the long run. Maybe doing a little less today and tomorrow, will help me to get more things done in the grand scheme of things. To whereas if I have to take a couple weeks or a couple months off because I'm burnt the hell out and can't find the motivation to do anything. So I completely understand where you're coming from.
I mean, it's one of those. Sorry. I was gonna say it's one of those where even though you're resting, your mind will be telling you have to work, you have to get back to it. You have to discipline yourself and ignore that side of you that urges you to work whilst you're burnt out, because like I said, you'll get nothing done. Nothing will come out naturally.
Now, I just want to kind of shift gears a bit now. And you had Witchfall at Sage, which is how I both discovered, the game and how I met you. But you just didn't have a game at Sage, but you were, for also, lack of a better term, an expo attendee as well. And so, what did you think about Sage this year?
Right, so I've only ever seen Sage talked about initially. I'd see it online, things like Sonic fan game, stuff like that, And I've always dreamed of getting onto Sage. I've always I just want to be part of something, I want people to see the game. I want to be part of this community. And when I had the chance to do so, I was welcomed with open arms. Everyone was so friendly and so polite. And as Sage progressed, it was like Christmas. It was one of the best experiences I've felt for a long while. Just the people you meet and the games you play and people playing your game. It's an absolute treat. And I think I'll attend every Sage because of that, because it's been such a pleasant experience for me.
It's rather interesting that you say it felt like Christmas, because honestly, that's how Sage feels like to me almost every year. So every year, I would say maybe a month or so before Sage starts, I kind of get in what I call the Sage spirit. And my wife probably really hates this, but I'll go around the house sing, not singing, but humming the theme to Green Hill Zone or Spring Yard Zone. There we go. And so, and I know she probably gets annoyed with that, but I kind of get into the spirit, and I don't stop talking about it for, on Twitter, in my videos, and because it's really just my favorite time of the year. Not only do I get to play so many amazing games, I get to meet so many amazing people such as yourself. And honestly, I get most of my gaming, a huge portion of my gaming diet throughout the year comes from Sage. And so it's a really big time of the year for me. So I definitely can really appreciate that comparison with Christmas time. What were some of your favorite games at this stage?
Oh, where do I start? I have a list. A lot of the Sonic fan games I played, loved so much. Very talented devs, but I know this might be a bit of a personal bias, but I did favor the indie games a little bit more, only because of my background with this. So some of my favorite games. Now, this wasn't really a project that was finished, but I loved the aesthetics of Project Rodeo. That one really sticks out to me, just because of the character designs of that game. The Western setting and stuff like that. I believe the game is in a very primitive state, but I couldn't help but fall in love with the aesthetics of it. One of the other games I really like, obviously Dungeon Gals. We got to mention Dungeon Gals here. Prototype N was phenomenal. Absolutely loved the look of that game. Horoscope was amazing. A lot of people did not that I condone it. A lot of people did a few comparisons between that and Witchfall. Honestly, I think Horoscope looked nicer, but I guess I'm glad to be compared to a game like that because it looks so professional. So it's really good. You know what? There's too many to name. They're just a few examples, but there are loads more that I did play and I absolutely loved. And I'm sorry if I missed anybody out.
I love Dungeon Girls as well. I absolutely loved that game. It had a very unique mechanic. And also, I loved the character design there. I loved how all the characters, they were unique. They had their own personalities, and they had their own move sets, and it kind of gave the game like a really unique, I don't want to say really. I seems to me, and I say this as somebody who didn't finish the demo, but it seems to me like with the way the setup is with the characters, it seems like the game would have a lot of replayability. There's a lot of areas to explore, different characters with different move sets, different capabilities and such. And that, for somebody like me, that replayability is a huge portion of what I look for in a game.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I did like Horoscope as well. I love the mechanics of that game. Just simply having a ring that could move around, and you move with limited moves. I felt like that was a very unique mechanic to have, and also it was very visually pleasing, I do have to admit.
I think also, while we're here, I think it'd be an injustice if we didn't mention Super Freaks. You can't have Sage about Super Freaks, I think. He got everywhere.
The sweep never ends, fam. The sweep never ends. Ooh. Honestly, I have two goals for future of Sage. One, I want to be featured one day. I would like to be a part of the Sage artwork, and two, I want to be a character. I want to be a character in a Super Freaks game. That's ooh, but very dynamic, very diverse games. Like I played through, Super Freaks Ultimate Edition, Super Freaks Strato Freaks, Super Freaks Arcade, and Super Freaks the side one, the Rise or Minus Scruff, I believe. And each one was very different from the last. And not only that, but I feel like they bring something unique to their genre. Like, for example, Strato Scruffs is a shoot 'em up, right? And most shoot 'em ups are also on rail shooters, so you don't really have a control of where you're going. The stage is constantly moving, so you don't really get a chance to explore. You don't really get a chance to be strategic and take your time, and you're under a lot of pressure. But with Strato Freaks, at least from what I've seen, the stages are stationary. You can move at your own leisure, and I really appreciate that. Now, who do you think was some of your favorite devs?
Oh, so I met a lot of devs during this stage. Again, not to be too biased, but the developer of Project Rodeo, only because she came along into a chat one day and she told me a little bit about, the stuff she's going through and her hopes and dreams for her project. And, I couldn't help but find a connection with this person because of the stuff she goes through, and she was very open about it, very friendly, and she was always very supportive when Witchfall came on a stream. She kind of stuck around, and she was just kind of there when I needed her, and hopefully I was there when she needed me. And we kind of looked after each other during Sage. Other devs, you got obviously the Scruffy dev. He was amazing to work, talk to and stuff like that. Miles Games, who absolutely phenomenal at making 3D models in crunch time. He made a whole Sage poster full of 3D characters he made on the spot. I don't know how he does that. He's some sort of tank. I know one of my favorites was a guy called Barak, who made the Mega Man 1 remake. We had a few talks and helped him out with his game a little bit. Really funny guy. Who else? There's so much more people that I met. God, yeah, no. I love everybody. Everyone's been amazing. But they were just a few I wanted to mention because of how much they helped me with Sage. Oh, shout outs to Raoul as well. Really cool host.
Yeah, I would say he and Daisuke Doi did a fantastic job hosting this year, and especially their first year. If you looked at what they did this year, you would not tell, or you could not tell that this was their first Sage hosting. So, they did a phenomenal job, and also, I think, shout out to Rummy as well. Even though he's not the host anymore, but he was around giving advice, helping out and stuff. A lot of respect there. A lot of respect.
Yeah, all the mods were really cool, really helpful. I'd recommend getting into talks with them because they can do a lot for you. And personally, if I was ever to maybe jump on Sage one day, maybe I'd hope I'd be like those guys, in terms of how helpful they are and how friendly they are. Like I said, there were no problems with Sage because of them. They did a really good job.
Now, this might be a difficult question to answer, but what do you think was the most unique game you played at Sage?
There were so many, but if I had to mention one, this is a really hard one. Because, like I said, there are so many unique games that came out this year. The only one that springs to mind, it was a small one called, I think it was Warrior Spirit. You play this little guy who has a really big arm, and you can swing across and do different things in this game. I don't know if you know this game, but I just thought it was really bizarre. And the music was something else as well. Really high-budget music for this small game. And for some reason, it stuck out to me, and I just thought this is just a real experience I'm going through right now. As I said, a lot of games were unique, but that one in particular really stood out. I think it was Warrior Spirit. What was it? Something like that. I'm gonna have to check real quick. Sorry, bear with me.
Oh, no worries. Actually, it's a really that's kind of maybe a dick question to ask, because if you would ask me that same question, I would have trouble answering it too, because there were so many that I absolutely loved. Like, did you play Blocks for Babies?
Yes. Oh, that one was crazy. Yes. No, I love that one. Was not expecting, because I did find it a little bit ominous as it was coming on. I was like, a little bit too cute, but I wasn't expecting it to go as scary as it did. I was like, but yeah, that one was fun.
And there was this game called, Monochronic Heights. There we go, Monochronic Heights, and it's a platformer where you play as a robot, and you can switch your colors between black and white, but the really awesome mechanic that really makes it stand out is that as you're platforming, you can only land, or you can only utilize platforms or other stage items that have that same color that you are. So if you are white, you can use only white platforms, or if you are black, you can only use black platforms. And
interesting.
And so there's a lot of strategy that goes into it. So that was a very unique one as well for me, I found.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as I said, there was a lot of unique games there. Probably some that I missed out on. Also, yes, it was Warrior Spirit, by the way. Yeah, I just found the aesthetics and the look of it. It really stood out to me. But again, I don't want to do an injustice to other games that were on there, because everyone did an amazing job. But I think just that one just jumped out at me for how different it was.
Oh, absolutely. In doing my video, and doing my last video, I had a hard time just picking out what games to talk about because there were so many games. There were so many games that I felt were really great. Honestly, and there are different kind of games too. Different kind of games from different kinds of people, different kinds of backgrounds, and most of the games, if not all of the games, brought something awesome to the table. And when you have or when you play like 230, 237 games, it's really hard to whittle that down to enough to be in like a 15, 20-minute video. So, ooh, but yeah, so many games there. Now I want to ask, because you mentioned that you fell in love with Sage. I'm in love with Sage. So I want to ask, is there anything you're looking forward to or anything you're wishing for Sage 25?
Short answer, just if it's anything like Sage 24, I'm fine. I'm perfect. That's all I want.
Now, do you think we're going to see Witchfall at any more online game events this year?
I'll certainly push for it. It all depends on the publisher, but I will certainly try and get more of Witchfall out there before the official game releases. I do know we are going to do some more demos on it at some point, and maybe a Kickstarter at some point. Shameless shill there, but I'll certainly try.
And what does the future look like for It's a Bacon Fish? Are there any projects you want to work on, post Witchfall?
I think when you get like ideas like I do, I feel like I have so many ideas, too many. Without spoiling anything, I would say eventually there could be a Witchfall 2. Eventually, I do want that to, depending on the success of the first game, I would like Witchfall 2 to be the magnum opus of my career. I would put everything into that game. But before that, I would like to do a few side games. I know for a fact I kind of want to capitalize on Frenchie's popularity a little bit and maybe make something for her because I know people do like her. Try something like that, but there are other maybe non-Witchfall related stuff could come out. We don't know. But it will all lead to Witchfall 2, which will be everything I'm working towards.
What advice could you offer a developer working on their first game?
As I said earlier, know when to take a break. Know when to stop, take a break. Look after yourself and work on the game when you can. And only chip away at it because you'll never get it done in one day. You can try, but you won't get it done in one day. So just give yourself a chance. Be good to yourself. And remember, you got to live as well.
I think that's some very solid advice, not just for game development, but just any type of creative or career-oriented, goal or project you may be working on or working towards. Burnout is a real thing, and self-care is something that it's needed in most, if not all, fields. So very solid advice. And lastly, I just want to ask, do you have any questions for me?
I did have one. What's happening in the future of Big Mike? What are you up to these days?
Well, that's actually a very interesting question. That is a very, very interesting question because this is, in fact, a bit of an interesting year for me. So, I have a hardcore gaming season where I tend to play a lot of games. It usually runs from May or June till about November, December-ish. And it's opposite of my in real life busy season, which tends to start up in December, January, and run until April or May. But this year, it normally peaks with Sage, and it continues on, and it continues on that high point until Sonic Hacking Contest, where it kind of starts to wane away. But this year, SHC is in September too. It's usually a bit later, maybe October, November. So this year it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. So I don't know exactly what's gonna happen in regards to my gaming content. Because I make a lot of different kinds of videos. If you can find a commonality on my channel, then you are a better person than I am. Because I tend to make videos on anything and everything, UAPs, AI, video games, internet archaeology, I think maybe the one commonality is I love a good story. I love something that can captivate me. And this coming up October, nothing's set in stone yet. Nothing is set in stone. I have to meet with a person. But I may be branching out and trying my first true crime video. I have an in real life friend. Oh, I'm sorry. I have a friend who has an in real life friend has a family member that's been the subject of a murder mystery, and they were looking for a YouTuber to cover the story, and they asked me, and I can't say it's definitely going to happen yet because I haven't met with the person, but if the spark of inspiration is there, it definitely will happen. That, and also I got some kind of cool things planned for October. There's actually a Sage game I want to go back and check out for October. It's called Triku, and it's a Game Boy game, and there's something. It's a horror game, but it has this feel, and I'm not sure if this is intentional or if it's not intentional. It has a kind of like an ARG creepypasta-like feel to it, like maybe there's something more there. I'm not saying that there is, but it kind of feels like it, and maybe I want to go back and investigate that a little bit. Got SHC coming up as well. Also, a lot of the shows I cover were kind of the shows I like to talk about here on my channel. They kind of got delayed until 2025, so that's gonna be coming a bit later. And I'm just gonna keep on trying new things. I love trying new things, and I tell people I'm willing to try any type of video at least once. If I like it, I'll keep on doing it. If not, I'll move on to something else. But it doesn't hurt to try everything once, right? So that's pretty much it. I did take a break from my videos in which my shorts in which I talk about my life living abroad, because I was filming one episode and I got bit by a mosquito and I got dengue fever, and long story short, the whole thing kind of got derailed. So I kind of put it on hold until after Sage, and I'm hoping to get back into that too as well. And so the things are looking good. And also in November-ish, I'm planning to get my nose back into the books of game development. So hopefully at Sage 25, I will not just be an attendee, but also I will have my own game at Sage. So that's pretty much what I have in store.
Can't wait. Can't wait to see it all.
Well, I'm still divided on whether if I'm going to do an indie game or a fan game. Because my really big idea was a fan game. Not so sure if it's going to be in the rules of Sage that would allow it or not. But it's going to be a visual novel. That much I do know, because that's what I work with. But we'll see. But I was sorry.
Sorry, go on.
Oh,
I was
please
going to
continue.
say one piece of advice. One piece of advice I'd give you, and not necessarily something I listen to, because as you know, I break the rules. But if you're going to start into game development, start small. Start very small. Like, visual novels, great and everything. But I would honestly give yourself a chance. Make something realistic at first, because you don't want to fall into the same ballpark I did with this, because it can really take its toll. But I know you can do it. Like, anyone can make games. Anybody. It's so easy these days.
So, Ren'Py is have you ever heard of Ren'Py before?
Remind me.
So, Ren'Py is a visual novel engine that it runs on Python, and many visual novels are made using it, like, for example, Doki Doki Literature Club. But what's really cool about it is that it has like a built-in tutorial, and it has a rather attractive waifu that will walk you through it. and teach you how to do things. And honestly, I was really surprised at how kind of simple it is. Like, honestly, learning this and learning Python was my first real experience with programming. But before that, I should say, I had this notion that programming was like a lot of complex mathematical formulas and shit like that, but not really too complicated. Now, where visual novels get really difficult is how they branch off. The story branches off, and that for me is the kicker for me. I've written movies before. Mm-hmm. I've written books before, but a visual novel is something on a whole other level. Thankfully, with this endeavor, I have a couple people joining me, or if it takes shape, I'm gonna have a couple people joining me, like the dev from Beavis and Butthead and Quest to Score. They're gonna be helping me out, and also one of my personal friends is gonna be helping me out with this as well. So I won't have to shoulder everything alone, but it's definitely a challenge. The writing aspect or the multiple path aspect is a very daunting task, I would say. Mm-hmm. One day also I would like to do a kart racer one day, though. I will say I have a soft spot in my heart. Maybe one day we could get a Witchfall kart racer, perhaps.
I hope so. It's one of the things I definitely want to do.
But yeah, I just want to say it's been a pleasure talking to you. You know, it was really I really wanted to have this interview or have this conversation. The very first time I played Witchfall, I was like, man, I have got to get the dev for Witchfall on here. And you know, this complete shot in the dark. I was like, hey, I would like to have you on Coffee with Big Mike one day, and he agreed, and I'm forever thankful for that, fam. I am forever thankful.
But well, the way I see it, I appreciate you reaching out because, like I said, all of this, everything that's happening to me in Witchfall is a blessing. And in many ways, a lot of people will resonate with this. In many ways, I feel I don't deserve it, because of the other games that are out on Sage and stuff like that. A lot of talented people out there, and a lot of the time, I do think this is just me. It's just my game. But the thing is that it's taken a lot of people in Sage to convince me that maybe we have something here. And it's thanks to Sage and stuff like that. I found a newfound belief in this game, and people like you come along, tell me your appreciation for it. It really does help. I could take critics as well. I could take critiques and things like that as well. That's fine. They help too. But it's things like this. People, devs that are going through the same thing coming along and telling me what I've got. I'm very grateful for that. So I'm grateful for this interview, and I'm grateful for you and everything that's happened with this game. Like, it's very lucky. I'm a very lucky person. I really am.
I think you're very talented and you're very dedicated. You put in a lot of hard work and you put a lot of dedication, and the fruits definitely show. Before we go, do you have anything you want to tell our audience?
See what Sage next year.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm already counting down the days to Sage 25. Like, as soon as October starts, I plan on posting, 11 more months to Sage. Or hopefully 11 more months to Sage. I'm not. They haven't set a date yet, but we're hoping.
Yeah. I will say, before we end, if the game's not completed by next Stage, who knows, might give you some more playable characters next year.
Ooh. I'm looking forward to that. I am definitely looking forward to that, fam. I'm looking forward to seeing, I don't want you to spoil anything for me or our audience, but I'm very curious to see if we can see more Fowler. Very curious to see.
Well, we'll wait and see about that.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. So here, hang on just a moment. I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to come back to you, and I'm going to give you a proper goodbye, okay?
Yeah.
Right. So thank you so much, Bacon, for all of your support and for joining us today. All right, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and waterfowls, thank you so much for joining us as well. Be sure to check out Witchfall Secrets of Emotica, the demo at the link below. And if you would like to support Bacon, be sure to wishlist it. Wishlisting games is a great way to support indie developers. Also, special thanks to Fran, who does a wonderful job of doing my art. A special thanks to all of my friends on Twitter. I wouldn't be here without you all. And most importantly, a special thank you to all of you for watching this video. Please like this video if you like it, dislike it if you dislike it, and feel free to comment below and tell me what you think. If you like my content, please subscribe and turn your notifications on. Until next time, fam, remember, just be yourself and you'll be awesome. Peace out!